and then preaching, but we're going to pick up verses. So verse 1, Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, the Arab, and the rest of our enemies found out that I had finished rebuilding the wall and that no gaps remained, though we had not yet set up the doors and the gates. So Sanballat and Geshem sent a message asking me to meet them at one of the villages in the plain of Ono. But I realized they were plotting to harm me. This is the word of our Lord. Thanks be to God. Walls has been erected. There are no gaps. We can see the finish line at the horizon. Surely from here on, it gets easier. It's just an upwind sail. Surely from here on, after he's been through the opposition without in chapter 4, and opposition within and oppression within chapter 5, surely now it must get easier. The challenges lessen, enemies dwindle. Surely it gets easier. Graduate from high school, we're away from our parents' grip. We are in college, life gets easier. Or we graduate from college, no more weekly exams, life gets easier. Or we have a job, I have my own income, I can buy whatever I want, life gets easier. I married the love of my life, no more issues of intimacy and relationship, life gets easier. We've got children, life does not get easier. We think if we get to a certain point that things get easier. But is it true, friends? As you've moved from one stage to the next stage, tell me, has life gotten easier? Has the challenges gotten easier? Has the opposition, has the enemies dwindled? Not for Nehemiah, just like life. In fact, these enemies seem to grow with every chapter we read along. And these enemies come back and back and back like some evil Energizer battery. They never stop. They come back in different forms. And in fact, they come in various forms. Remember in chapter 4, it was very, in one sense, simple. It was a frontal attack. Let's go. Let's kill them. Let's stop them with arrows and swords. But that doesn't work. Nehemiah is strong and wise, and they don't even shoot a single arrow through the air. But these enemies, they will not stop. The oppositions of our life doesn't end. And they have various forms. And for those in life groups, you study this, so you'll know this better. For those who are not in the life group, I encourage you guys to read it, the chapter that we'll be studying before. Then the message itself will be even more exciting and deeper. And so I just want to look at through some of these attacks the enemies puts upon Nehemiah. So the first thing we see here is this, right? So Sanballat and Geshem said the message, and then he realizes Nehemiah said they're planning to harm me. Verse 3, so I replied by sending this message to them, I am engaged in a great work, so I can't come. Why should I stop working to come and meet with you? 4 times they sent the same message, and each time I get them the same reply. The first technique that the enemies use is this. They say, hey, you know all that happened before? That was all just a misunderstanding. Look, let's drink together and forget about it and start again. They want to bring Nehemiah to a bar, get him a little tipsy, bring him out to the alley, and jump him. But of course, Nehemiah is smart. It's not that he's a hawk, always looking for a fight and distrusting all attempts at peace. He's just wise as a serpent, as Jesus tells us to. He's just wise. He knows that their intention is set on being against his mission. And now, you know, he doesn't take it personal, okay? I want to be very clear as we talk about these things, about these enemies and oppositions. Right? These enemies, they don't start as a personal attack to Nehemiah. It's not like they hate Nehemiah. In fact, if Nehemiah stayed at the fortress of Susa, these enemies would not bother him. There would have been no enemies. But the thing is, Nehemiah had this call, and he trekked those miles, and he had a mission to build a wall, and they were set against building the wall. They didn't want the wall to be built. They didn't want Judaism, Jewish people to set up again. And because they were against the wall, and in their fight, it eventually becomes personal. They want to eliminate Nehemiah. Eliminate Nehemiah. Don't take it personally. Nehemiah said, we don't like you, but you're on our way. We don't like your mission. We get rid of you, then we get rid of the mission. And so they attack him. It doesn't start personally, but it becomes personal. And Nehemiah is wise to it. He says, no, I am not going to meet. Now, is there a practical lesson for us here? I think there is. Right? And I think it's this. I think for us, some of our friends that we live with, or some of our friends that we hang out with, are not really good friends. They might not have been set against us like Sanballat from the very beginning, but they could be friends, again, we grew up with, we're familiar with, we do similar things with, but they might be distracting us from the mission that God has given us. They mean good, they mean to just have fun, but to be very clear and direct, if when we meet with those friends and all we end up with is maybe committing that same sin, or maybe just dealing with guilt, or if they're distracting us from that one life mission that God has given us, then it might be wise, just like Nehemiah, to simply cut it off and say, no, I cannot meet. I cannot meet with you. See, this is Nehemiah's wisdom, isn't it? See, Nehemiah knows that the most important thing in this constant attack of enemies is not to be distracted from the mission. And this we're going to continue to return and return again as we read the passage. But did you get it? His reply? His reply is, no, I have to do great work. See, the enemy's attack, it doesn't start personal. It becomes personal. But its main attack really is to distract us from the life's mission. So maybe they cannot get Nehemiah out down the alley and give him a beating. But if they distract him enough, if they take away his energy enough, if they make Nehemiah feel like he has to fight them enough, then they will distract him enough from his life's mission. And that will be a loss. So that's the first thing. Enemies pretending to be friends. And maybe we have friends who are not enemies, but to be quite honest, they're leading us away from our life's mission. And friends, you and I, how many lives do we have? It's not a true question. One life. And every second that goes by cannot be returned. There's one life that we have. And God has all given us one life mission. Wouldn't it be such a waste if we get distracted from that because of the friends who keep us away from God, the Spirit, and our mission? So here is the first attack. They come and try to be friends. They want to assassinate. They want to distract. What's some other ways in which way they do it? In verse 5, the fifth time Sanballat's servant came with an open letter in his hand. And this is what it said. There's a rumor among the surrounding nations, and Geshem tells me it is true, that you and the Jews are planning to rebel, and that is why you're building the wall. According to his reports, you plan to be their king. He also reports that you have appointed prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim about you, look, there's a king in Judah. You can be very sure that this report will get back to the king. So I suggest that you come and talk it over with me. So that first one, pretending friendship, trying to lure him in, doesn't work. So now what is he doing? He's using the corrosive power of gossip. Did you get that? He doesn't accuse him directly, but he uses all this smoke screen. I heard from Geshem, who heard that you said, right? Hey, I heard that you said about him this and this and that. I think so. There's so much smoke screen that's not even clear what exactly he is saying. And there's no direct accusation, so they can't even make a direct confrontation. Now, this is an old trick. They have done this before. Sanballat, right, the previous generation, when the first exiles returned, and as they were trying to build the temple, the enemies at that generation said, hey, you're trying to do this, to establish a kingdom and to rebel. And at that time, it worked against King Artaxerxes. He was not this king, but the Artaxerxes before. Kings had similar names, like Louis XIII, Louis XIV. Right? And so they worked before. And so they're using the same trick to get Nehemiah scared, rattled, and to stop his work. They know, the exiles know, that this plot worked, and they're trying it again. But listen very carefully to what they're doing. Actually, it's even much, much older than the previous generation, the previous exile generation. The way their words, they slide and coil and bend. You've heard this before. Way, way long ago. It was the first temptation, wasn't it? Adam and Eve, and the serpent comes out and says, did God really say that you cannot eat of the fruit in the middle? Well, you know what I think? I think that's because God doesn't want you to be like him. He takes God's words, rearranges them, and makes suggestions that sounds like, wow, it must be true. Very wily, very deceptive. And these enemies, they even take it even further, doesn't it? So they create this rumor, and so this rumor has a lot of implications. And then after that, they try to have Nehemiah confirm these rumors by his own actions. And the way he does it, it's very deceptive, is he tries to get even Nehemiah's own friends to work against him. If you look at, continuing on, chapter 6, verse 10, later, I went to visit Shemaiah, son of Delaiah, and grandson of Mehetabel, who was confined to his home. He said, let us meet together inside the temple of God and bolt the door shut. Your enemies are coming to kill you tonight. But I replied, should someone in my position run from the danger? Should someone in my position enter the temple, save his life? No, I won't do it. Wow, Shemaiah. I feel like of all these attacks, I feel like this could have undone Nehemiah. Sanballat, Tobiah, they're foreigners. Of course, they'll be against the Jewish people rising. But now it's like the Jews, his own people, plotting with them against him. How much hurt that must have lodged into his heart. And you just hear Shemaiah, he went to his home because he was unable to move out of the house. He must have been sick maybe. They were very close. So that's why Nehemiah, out of the compassion of his heart, he visits Shemaiah. And if you look at Shemaiah, he comes out in Nehemiah chapter 10, he seems like he's a priest. In fact, he's probably a priest. Later on, he talks about him as a prophet. And the very fact he said, hey, let's go to the temple and hide together, means he probably had access to the temple, a priest. So here's a priest, and there's a trust. And then this priest uses words that shows what friends would say. Like the enemies are coming to you. We got to protect you. Let's go to the temple. I'll protect you. Make sure the enemies don't lay their hands on you. It sounds like what friends would say. But it's not, is it? And Nehemiah sees right through it. And the reason why he doesn't go is not simply because he's brave and he has boldness, but because he knows, very wise, he sees right through it. If he's about to go to the temple, what he would be saying is he's seeking refuge from something that he had done. And of course, there's all these rumors are spreading around. So what will people say? Hey, Nehemiah, these rumors must be true. Why else would you seek the temple? Very devious. The enemy's the opposition is relentless, and they will take many forms. But I think here, again, if it could have been anything that undoes Nehemiah, it must be this, even his own people. And actually, if you read along, he also prays to God about Noadiah, right? The prophetess and others like her. So it wasn't just one priest or one prophet, but many prophets. What was the motivation? Do they not want the same thing as Nehemiah? For their own people to be reestablished? You start with trust there. But here it is. So how do you face it really? When as you're doing the work of God, these opposition is relentless. Okay. Now let us be clear. When we talk about enemies, we got to be wary of two things, right? And we did this in chapter 4. We looked at C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letter. He talks about how the devil loves the materialist, and the magician the same way. They delight it. Why? The materialist says, there are no enemies. There's no opposition. And so then that just sets us up to be vulnerable. But there's a magician say, everybody's an enemy. Everybody's the face of the devil. And that's unhealthy focus on Satan and the devil and the enemy. And what happens is then you don't really deal with the opposition itself. It becomes just some supernatural, personal conflict. So we got to be wary of those things. But this is true. In life, there will always be opposition. And especially when the opposition comes in this so many various forms, and through even friends, what do? What does Nehemiah do? Well, I think there's a couple of things. First is this. To face the fact that you will have opposition in life, you have to first accept that fact, that you will have oppositions in life. I know it's simple. It's like, it might be the obvious, but we always have to start with what's obvious. Right? Because if we think that if we do the work of God and there will be no oppositions, that it puts us in an imbalance. And as soon as the opposition challenges come, we begin to challenge and ask God. Oh God, I thought you wanted me to come here, but how come I'm not able to get a job? How come I'm not able to get the mortgage? How come I'm not able to get the visa? Oh God, I thought you wanted me to get this job. How come the boss is so bossy? Oh God, I thought you wanted me to come to this church, but how come she is here? See, if we don't face the fact that there will always be opposition, then challenges, opposition will always be an opportunity for us to complain and say, look, is it the will of God? Is it? Jesus even says this, right? He says, if you follow me, you will be persecuted just like me. Right? So basically what Jesus is saying is, if you follow your life mission, especially the life mission that God has given you, expect opposition. Right? Now, there is a danger of the opposite. There are some people that look, see, if you follow Christ, then there's opposition. So, opposition must be the sign of following Christ. You know what I'm talking about, these people? So they think like, if you don't have an opposition, then you're not doing the will of God. You're too friendly with the world. So you have to have more people hate you than you truly love God. Like, there's that one church in Kansas, they burned the Quran, and then from that, there's a backlash of media, and they're like, look, all this world hates us. We're the only holy people of God. Wrong. Okay? Opposition is not a sign of anything. It's not a sign that you're doing the work of God, or a sign of you're not doing the work of God. Opposition is the natural consequence of us doing the mission of God. That's all it is. So Nehemiah knows this. See, Nehemiah's understanding of mission is so independent of the circumstances. He's not going to depend on, they hate me, so I must be doing well. Or they hate me, so God must, my own people are opposing me, so it must not be God's will. No, he's independent of that. His understanding of his mission is fully based upon his life of prayer with God. And that's where he stands on. Opposition, it comes. He expects it. Part of life. So he goes really balanced, doesn't he? Right? He doesn't get so upset that he begins to fight back, does he? He never fights against the enemy. He never goes against the enemy. He's never emotionally riled up. At the same time, he doesn't get discouraged. He keeps his eyes focused. And so to have that balance, that's the first thing. Like in life, you will have oppositions. Okay? But the second thing is this, and now we're going to Nehemiah, more of a clear picture of what he does. He does two things, doesn't he? Throughout the chapter, he prays, and then he focuses on the mission. And then, of course, they go together. And the first thing he does is he prays, he says, oh God, remember these enemies. And he names them, doesn't he? Nuadai, the false prophet, and all these people. Remember them. And when we first started reading this book, I think you guys, like me, thought like, Dad, Nehemiah, he's so vindictive. He wants to make sure that God remembers his enemies and punishes them. And to an extent, that's how it sounds like. But actually, as I was practicing what he was doing, you know what Nehemiah was doing? As he was being honest with his emotions with God, because he believes in a God who's big and great. And it's not so small-minded that he's going to say, remember what you said all this when you were angry? No. Even as he said, what he's doing is, as he says, remember God, these enemies, you know what he's doing? He's forgetting them. Isn't he? He's not going to make his life goal now. Stop these enemies. Get back at them. Get back at Shemaiah. I gave my life to him, and he does this. Get back. No, he says, God, remember these enemies that oppose me. I'm going to leave it up to God, you, to judge in your own justice. I mean, I have desire that you would judge this way, but I'm going to leave it to you. Remember, so I can forget. And it's a powerful prayer. It's like, God, remember this. You go to God, all the anxieties. You say, God, remember these anxieties. because I'm not going to remember them anymore, because it's weighing me down. I need to focus. And when I tried this is what I realized. In fact, this week, I'm going to encourage you guys, challenge you guys, whatever enemies you have, whatever hurt you might have, and you still hate that person, maybe it might be fresh, maybe it might be a long time ago, but it's still smoldering inside, get on your knees and say, remember what this person has done against me. And as you do that, you will see a releasing. In fact, let's do it now. I want you to close your eyes. Now, you're going to say, remember, but when you do that, okay, when you name your enemy, right, I want you to name it quietly in your heart, not out loud, because your spouse might be next to you, okay? So close your eyes, just in your heart, silently, just to show that how this works, okay? Again, let's just be honest, okay? We get hurt, okay? Don't talk, about who's right, who's wrong. If you got hurt, okay, we're not saying your sense of justice is the correct one. You're just saying you're going to be honest with what happened to you. And I just say right now, remember this person, just name that person quietly, and for the hurt that he or she has caused. Okay, you're not claiming again, you are understanding justice is absolute, but you're just kind of releasing it to God. Just say that prayer right now. And once you said the prayer, please open your eyes. Is your heart at peace now? Not completely. It takes time. But do you see how it works? So he says, remember, so he could get it out of his head and leave it to God, and he could focus. That's the first prayer. The second thing is this, right? Again, very simple. And then in every response, what he does is he just says, I have to do this great work. I have to focus on this mission. And in one sense, really, the best way to get back at enemies, right, to do the opposition, is, again, not to fight them, then you lose. You lose energy. You lose time. You lose motivation. Is to simply stay true to your course and accomplish that life mission. So if you look at chapter 6, every part of it, right? Verse 9, okay? I'm just going back and forth. Okay, I'm sorry, media team. Okay, I'm not going through exact same verses that I've lined up. Verse 9, they were just trying to intimidate us, imagine that they could discourage and stop the work. So I continued to work with even greater determination. Every part of it, that's how he applies. He focuses on his mission. And then verse 15, so on October 2nd, the wall was finished, just 52 days after it begun. When our enemies and the surrounding nations heard about it, they were frightened and humiliated. They realized this work had been done with the help of our God. See, he doesn't throw one stone back at the enemy's opposition, because that's not his life mission. Our life's mission is not to come out on top. Our life's mission is not to say, hey, I won and you lost. Our life's mission is the calling God has for you, for your unique individual life, and for us as a community. And the best way, really, to win is to accomplish that life's mission, that community's mission. Elizabeth Smart, you might know her. When she was 14, Brian Daniel Mitchell, David Mitchell, who considered himself a prophet in Salt Lake City, ran into her own bedroom and with a knife at her throat, kidnapped her. Said, God has given you as my second wife. And he tied her, abused her, raped her, sometimes multiple times a day. After 9 months, she was found, she was rescued. Just recently, she came out with a book called My Story. And she was interviewed in NPR and was asked, how are you able to tell your story and relive it? How is it that you didn't withdraw, but you went on with your life? She's married. In the interview, she's bubbling with joy. She says she's the happiest person. How can you do this? And I just want to read her own words. She answered, that would have been easy to do, to withdraw, to not push forward, to use my experience as a crutch throughout the rest of my life. But the morning after I was rescued, my mom gave me the best advice I've ever given, and it's the only advice I can share with other people. My mom said to me, Elizabeth, what this man has done to you, it's terrible. There aren't words strong enough to describe how wicked and evil he is. He has stolen 9 months of your life from you that you will never get back. But the best punishment you could ever give him is to be happy. Is to move forward with your life and to do exactly what you want to do, because yes, this will probably go to courts and some kind of sentencing will be made, but you may never feel like justice is served. You may never feel like restitution has really been made. But at the end of the day, God is the ultimate judge, and everything that you've lost will be made up to you. So the best thing you can do is to move forward, because by feeling sorry for yourself and holding on to what's happened, that's only allowing him more power and more control over your life, and he doesn't deserve another second. So be happy and move forward. Now, some of you might have devastating hurts. Some of you are just tired because of the endless oppositions from small things. We're saying, you can't do this. Why did you do that? You'll never. Stay true to the mission that God has given you. And this is the way to victory. This is the way to overcome that. Malala Yousafzai, you might know her too. She's was under Taliban rule, but she spoke about for women's rights and education, and at the age of 12 wrote a blog to the BBC and brought her into the public world, and she advocated education. At the age of 14, as she was returning from school, she was shot in the head by a Taliban. When she went to the hospital, unconscious, critical condition, but amazingly she recovered. It was all in the news, right? Last year, October 2012. Well, this July in UN, she stood up and she made a speech. And she simply says, I am not against the Taliban. I am for education. Education for every person, for every girl, all daughters of Taliban extremists. I am just one girl of many. Life's mission. And you and I all had that. Another way he inspires himself. Did you hear that? He says, I must focus on this great work. What's your great work, Nehemiah? Putting bricks up above another? That is a great work, but of course that's not his ultimate mission, is it? How long did he stay in Jerusalem? 20 years. How long did it take to build the walls? 52 days. See, if all his mission was build the wall, then he should have left and gone. But it was more than that. He saw that the wall was necessary, and he was able to commit, paradoxically, he was able to commit to that mission because he knew that there was a greater mission, which is to reestablish the people of God. And so Yahweh can be worshipped again, and the words of Yahweh can be heard again. So it was for his people, but also for God, because God spoke through his people. God revealed through his people. It was Moses' lips. It was through this priest and prophet that spoke. That was his mission. So for 20 years he stays administering, making sure, using his gifts. He's not a teacher, but he's an administrator and a governor. So he'll make sure the city goes well, so the law can be preached. He knows that that's the great work. And because he always saw that, he was able to commit himself to see the wall being rebuilt. You see, a lot of times our excuse for not doing life's mission is that, hey, we're not there yet. You know, it's like, it's so far away. I have to graduate first. I have to get a degree first. I have to meet somebody first. I have to have somebody say, no. Mission is lifelong. Okay? And the great mission of whatever it is that God's put in your heart, whether it be fighting poverty, whether it be bringing some justice, whatever it is, that's a long term. But there's always something that you and I can do now. Some wall, some brick that we could put up now. And it could be that maybe you're controlling, like we said, media. You're not consuming all this media that distracts you and that just leaves you just without energy, without passion. Then you got to cut it off now. Quite often we think our life mission again starts later so that we don't do anything now. No, now. Whatever brick that is, or how laborious that is, how boring that is, now. It could be a habit of developing a prayer life. Maybe just waking up a little bit early, 10 minutes and praying. Maybe it is going through the books of the Bible that we're going through. Just one chapter a week. Maybe it's going to life group. Something that must be done now. Because you know that you have a great life mission, but that great life mission starts a brick at a time. What are you doing now? Don't wait to start your life mission. You start now. And that's the second thing too. Because this is a great word, he actually, 52 days. How do you build a wall of a city in 52 days? Do you think it was a beautiful wall? Do you think it was done well? No. It was done quickly. In fact, one commentator says it was probably rushed and haphazard, but it was good enough for its purpose. It was good enough for its purpose. Not the great. See, it's the clarity of his mission. His purpose is not to build a great wall that's beautiful and that will impress. His purpose is to create enough wall to give security so the real thing can happen, which is inside those walls, the temple of God, the reading of the law. So he said, you know what? What's most important right here is just get it done. 52 days. Arriba, arriba. Let's build it up. 52 days. You know, what's the lesson for us over there? Right? Yeah, I think sometimes, there's wisdom in waiting. Okay? Timing is very important. In fact, do you remember the first book of the Bible that we went through when I first came here? It was the book of Mark, and we talked about timing is everything. And in timing, there's a time to wait, being patient. But sometimes timing means do it now. Do it now. And so when you look at the book of Mark, what we hear constantly over and over again is immediately Jesus went up to the mountain. Immediately Jesus began teaching. And sometimes you got to do it. Even if you don't have everything lined up, even if you don't have a great, perfect plan, understanding every type of circumstances, you just go and do it. I saw an interview, actually read an interview in a Fast Company, it's a business magazine, and they talked about venture capitalists. How come many startups fail? And the answer surprised me. He says many startups fail because many startups wait too long to start. Just wait too long. They're waiting for everything to line up. But you might have heard this quote. He says, okay plan today, put into action is better than tomorrow's perfect plan. Because study shows that half of our plans go wrong anyway. But the only way you know your plan goes wrong is to do it. And then adjust. And then adjust. And then adjust. Okay? Business application, if you guys have a business, think about it. Don't wait too long. In your life mission, again, start now. And obviously this has a very direct application to our church, so I'm going to speak to that about that. Us too. Right now, our church is, we want to plant, we want to launch. Do we have everything on board? No, we don't. Do we have enough? I say yes, we do. So we got to start and launch. Now, I don't want to do a misapplication of this text, okay? So Nehemiah is building the wall. We are doing the church plant. Nehemiah's enemies. So is DPCK my enemies? No. Okay, I think someone might be hearing over there recording. No. DPC is we love them. They are our mother church. I respect them highly, and we want to bless them. We want to bless them. But will there be differences? Yes. And we're going to be flexible to an extent. And remember in the town hall meeting, we said, look, April, we want to push forward with it. But if they say later, August, we will do with it. But we want to be very clear. There comes a time when we wait so long indefinitely, then we will never, ever be able to launch. So the date that's been very clearly said is August. And having said that, I want you guys, okay, the building of the wall, the launching, we have the steering team committee, we have the nominating committee, they'll do their job. For the rest of us, let's keep our eyes on the bigger thing, which is being a church. I want you guys to love God, worship God, be disciples, invite your friends. Don't stop. Don't wait. We are going to build a wall, and it's going to be there, but don't wait to be a church for that get to be done. Okay? Invite your friends. Pray for them. See God work and change people's lives. Right now, we don't have to wait. That's what I want our church to focus on, the mission. Can we show our vision and mission? The vision, okay. Our vision is a community where people of all cultures worship God together. And this is so organic. It has happened as 3 years worshiping together and seeing different peoples coming together. And our mission is this. Can we read that together? Our mission is to follow Christ and transform the triangle by creating a multicultural church that embraces differences, lives the new life together, and reaches out to all God's people. We're going to embrace and accept everyone. We're going to be discipled together, and then we're going to reach out to all God's people. And I believe that the most genuine friendship is the friends that you worship with and you disciple with. And if we can do that with anybody here, that friendship of worship and discipleship will change the conversation of race and culture in the Triangle area. I am confident. That's our mission. We can start now. Do you accept your mission? Okay. Last thing is this. Okay, when I read this, I felt like, okay, so Nehemiah is able to build in 52 days despite the opposition. But you know, that's not it actually. It's because of the opposition that he is even able to do it that fast. It's the enemy's opposition that drives this mission to be done in such a quick pace. When you sail, right, if the wind and the wave is in the same direction, the same speed, you know what happens? That's called drifting. Even if it's the same direction, if it's the same speed, it's a drift. You could have upwind, which means the wind is stronger than the wave, then you go more easily. Now you could have opposing wind, but if you put the sail in the right way, you could go forward. And it pushes you, drives you. Right? Why? Because we believe in a God who's sovereign. And ultimately, this is Nehemiah believed that this mission will be accomplished because God is sovereign. And God will accomplish it despite different circumstances. No matter what the enemy has against you, all of it can be used to accomplish the mission of God. It's not despite of, but because of it, that we will accomplish our mission. Jesus is the exact perfect illustration of this, right? The enemies opposed him. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to crucify him. And they did everything that they wanted to do on Jesus. Spit at him, mock him, and crucify and kill him. But, oh man, actually, that was his mission. They accomplished God's mission for him. And so he dies and rises for our redemption. Whatever oppositions you might face, that will be your wind behind your sail as you seek your life's mission. And today we have baptism, which kind of tells you what our life's mission is about, right? About baptizing.